All right, guys, what's up? Aaron, Canadian Lonely, smash like, hit subscribe. Sorry, a little bit of a delay there. Get it going.
Like many of my colleagues, I mean, the Liberal Party is obviously bigger than one person. The Prime Minister has been very clear. We're not changing the Liberal Party. We're not changing our values. And I've heard MP Gladu said that she would rally behind those values and positions from the Liberal Party and the government. Arguably, we have shifted, and every Prime Minister comes with his or her own signature and his way of doing things. Prime Minister Carney is different than Prime Minister Trudeau. We are still a very progressive party. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we made a historic announcement of almost $4 billion for nature conservation. Canada is and remains a world leader when it comes to protecting nature. There are things we're doing here that people all around the world are looking towards and saying this is what we should be doing. On a number of issues, we're still very progressive. We have changed, and we will probably change under another leader because that's the way things are.
Now, some of the views that she held as a conservative would have been at odds with progressive liberals like Quebec Liberal MP and former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault. He joins me now. And we're joined right now by Mr. Guilbeault. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mike.
We're in your riding, Laurier Ste. Marie here,
yes.
So thanks for welcoming us here. I wanted to start off with how we had seen over the last couple of days, you had replied to a tweet on X. And it was a meme of a character from That 70s Show
Sure.
pouring a big drink.
Early in the morning, I believe.
Early in the morning, at learning of the defection of Marilyn Gladu to the Liberals. Did you need a big drink that day?
No, I did not. I don't. I avoid doing that as much as I can. Yeah. I was surprised, and I think many of my colleagues, in fact, I've heard from many of them, were as well. It did raise some eyebrows.
Do you feel comfortable with Marilyn Gladu in your caucus?
I do. I mean, she's an intelligent woman. She must know what she's getting into. She knows what the Liberal Party stands for. She knows of our position on LGBTQ issues. As you said, I'm the member of Parliament for this riding. The gay village is right a couple of blocks away from here. Very important community in this riding. She knows of our position on climate change. She knows of our position on the right to choose for women. So, the party is bigger than one person. So she must understand what it means to be joining the Liberal Party of Canada.
At the same time, the two of you have clashed on a number of occasions in the House of Commons, and
have.
I mean, one can't really sort of forget that, as you said, she has talked negatively about a transgendered lifestyle, as she called it, and that does speak to your voters. She has also been anti-vax and pro-convoy. How does that fit inside this party?
Clearly, she will have to revisit those positions that she's taken in the past, and then she has said that she was ready to do that she was ready to embrace the party's position moving forward and support when need be, when we have important votes on these issues, that she will vote with us.
You resigned from cabinet on an issue of your convictions. How do you feel sitting next to somebody in caucus who seemingly is changing their convictions now?
I mean, we've often said, and I know it sounds a bit cliche, that the Liberal Party is a big tent, and it is. When I was Environment Minister, I had colleagues, sometimes ministers, sometimes members of Parliament, who disagreed with some of the things that I was putting forward on climate change, for example, on plastics. So there's nothing new, there's nothing unusual about this. And again, like she knows where we stand on all of these things. On climate change, for example, we're not doing as much as we used to, but we're still we're still working to fight climate change in Canada. We still have a suite of measures, whether they're financial, fiscal, regulatory measures. She understands that this is not going to stop because she's coming over. Like she's not. She is in a party that certainly disputes the reality of. She was in a party that disputed the reality of climate change. It's not the case with the Liberal Party of Canada.
But do you think that this party is big enough to fit all of those views in right now? Because we consider you're a little more left of center, one would say.
I would agree with that.
Laurie Idlout as well came from the NDP.
Yeah.
and of course, Marilyn Gladu, social conservative, somebody who had a number of the views that we just went through. What does this party stand for anymore?
I don't think we've changed our position because, someone could have said, well, is, a floor crosser from the NDP changing the Liberal Party of Canada? No.
Not under Justin Trudeau, because it was already kind of there. That the party that Justin Trudeau had basically moved more towards the left of the political spectrum, and when you came in as well, you could say the party was already there to welcome in somebody from the NDP. But this seems like it's going a little further right than the Liberals have been in this generation.
And yet we have welcomed a floor crosser from the NDP. So I think you are right. We campaigned in the last election as a maybe center-left party, and we're governing more as a center-right party. And I don't think anyone would be surprised that I would say that. Like it's very obvious. But we're still, in terms of our values and what we stand for, this hasn't changed. There's a different way of doing things. There's a shift in certain priorities. But we still stand for all of those things that you and I have been talking about.
Do you still feel comfortable in this party that you're seeing now and how it is shifting more towards the center?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, I decided to resign my position as a cabinet minister, but I'm still a member of the Liberal Caucus. I'm here at the convention. I'm an active member of Parliament within the Liberal Party, and will continue to be.
Is it getting more difficult, though?
On some issues, yes. On some, no. We saw the amazing announcement by the Prime Minister on nature 2 weeks ago, almost $4 billion of investment. I had worked a lot on that as Nature Minister before leaving Cabinet. I was very happy that we decided to continue moving ahead in that direction. Canada remains an international leader when it comes to nature and biodiversity. On other issues, on climate change, which led me to leave Cabinet, it is more difficult.
What's your breaking point? What would be the line that you would say, that's it, I can't be with this party anymore?
I think I reached that line when I was in Cabinet and decided to leave. I said, as an MP, I have more freedom to express my views on position that the government takes. As a cabinet minister, you can't do that. I felt that I could no longer support what was being proposed on climate change, which is why I decided to leave cabinet. But as a member of parliament, I have lots of freedom to be able to express sometimes disagreement, sometimes questions, like the floor crossing of Madame Gladu, of MP Gladu. So I feel comfortable being able to do that, being in that position.
Has the Prime Minister's office reached out to you to ask you to not leave or to try and convince you to stay on?
I had conversations with various people before leaving cabinet. Yes, I did.
And what have those conversations been like since?
Like another grit wouldn't just replace him.
I think the fact that it was clear for everyone that I was leaving on a matter of principle, that I didn't throw grenades around me when I left cabinet. I didn't criticize the Prime Minister. I said
that's normal talk.
Disagree with this decision that we're making, has allowed me to maintain very courteous relationship, and I still talk to people from the Prime Minister's office. I'm still being consulted on a number of issues, including the nature strategy that was announced. I still meet the Prime Minister on some of these issues, not as often as I would when I was in cabinet, but I still have conversations with him about these things.
But have they made it clear that they want you to stay in the seat that you have right now? Because this is a seat before you held it, hotly contested, especially with the Bloc Québécois.
Hadn't been Liberal for 30 years.
Exactly.
When I went. Yeah.
So have they reached out to you and said, we want you to stay?
Yes, and many of my colleagues were concerned. MP colleagues were concerned that maybe I wasn't just leaving cabinet, but I would leave the party. So lots of people came to me to say we would like you to stay, which was a nice thing to. It's nice to feel that you're welcome and wanted. Yes.
I wanted to ask you about sort of the progress or lack thereof that we've seen since December, since you left with the MOU and Alberta. At the time when you were doing interviews, as on this show, you had said essentially that the math doesn't math, and you thought it was impossible for the federal government to meet its 2030 emissions targets. How are you feeling with the lack of progress right now on the MOU, especially on the environmental side? And you consider that as of April 1st, the deadline for the industrial carbon pricing has already been missed.
Yeah. So the last year I was environment minister, there's an independent study that came out that showed that we have a target of reducing our pollution levels by 40% by 2030. That study showed that with the measures that had been announced that were being implemented, we were aiming at minus 36%. So we weren't quite there, but we were getting very close for the first time in the history of Canada. There's a new study that came out recently that shows that now we're tracking to be at minus 21, not minus 30.
Right.
So halfway to where we're supposed to be in 2030. So we're still reducing emissions, we're still fighting climate change, but certainly not at the pace and scale that we should be. And I'm very worried about that. I am still worried about many elements of the MOU with Alberta. And I'm not against the idea of signing an MOU with Alberta. As Environment Minister, I renegotiated industrial carbon pricing with Saskatchewan, with Alberta,
What?
Danielle Smith's government. So Stephen Guilbeault, Environment Minister, I was able to do that. So I'm certainly not against it. But I feel that right now we are willing to compromise too much in order to please Premier Smith on this issue where she's proven that she is not trustworthy. And that makes me very worried.
So why are you staying?
Because I want to continue to fight from within the party and to push to try and make sure that we save as much as the climate plan as we can, and we do better when it comes to fighting climate change.
But it doesn't seem like we're doing better. You just sketched out to me that we're not there. We're halfway to trying to meet those emissions, and you don't think that we're on that right track. So
Well,
I'm trying to figure out why you're remaining here. Why do you think that your contribution is still making a difference if the governing party is not really going in the direction that you want them to?
Well, on nature, I just gave you a clear example where we are still very much remaining
Understood,
a leader.
but emissions is a lot bigger.
They're both considered like the two most important international crises.
Right.
Like they often talk about the dual crises of nature and climate. On climate change, I think that there's still a pathway to salvage important elements of the climate change plan that myself and others have elaborated in the past few years to make sure that we do better. So at minus 20, we're tracking to minus 21. I think we can get this number up if in the coming weeks and months we make the right decisions, and that's why I'm sticking around.
Will you be around for the next election?
I haven't made a decision on that, so I'm not trying not to
I
answer
hope
your
not. It's not going to get better, guys. This is Mark Miller.
We're now joined by the Minister for Canadian Identity and Culture, Mark Miller. Minister Miller, thank you for being here.
Michael, thank you for having me.
Listen, I'm not going to begin with the convention or your portfolio. Actually, what I want to begin with are the by-elections coming up on Monday. One of them, the one predicted to be the closest race, is in the Greater Montreal area, Terrebonne. You yourself are a Montreal MP. Do you think your party stands a good chance of winning Terrebonne on Monday?
I'm not taking anything for granted. I don't think we had historically ever won a poll in Terrebonne, or at least any sort of extrapolation of the popular vote. It is difficult. There's been a big turnout for the advanced polls, double what we were seeing in the other ridings in Toronto. I'm hopeful, but I think our teams are taking nothing for granted, and we're really putting on a full court press and.
Good luck with this guy.
If we win it, it's fair and square, and if we don't, that's fair and square too. But sort of very cautiously optimistic.
Okay, cautiously optimistic. As you say, there are two other by-elections taking place in Toronto. The early predictions there indicate that they're going to be Liberal wins. Again, take nothing for granted. We don't know what's going to happen. But if those are Liberal wins, those two alone will push this government into majority territory. How important is Terrebonne if a majority is accomplished with those two other races?
Well, it's another voice for Quebec, and I think that's super important in the balance of things. I'm very competitive. I want to win all three of them. So, it'll be disappointing to me if we don't win all three. Sort of can understand it, but we're taking 0-0 for granted.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to watch that closely, obviously, come Monday, and we'll be talking about it days afterwards. But I also want to talk about the convention that we're seeing behind us right now. Obviously, a large convention, more than 4,500 delegates, according to the organizers, are here in Montreal to take part in this. And of course, it got underway with news that there was another conservative floor crosser joining the Liberal ranks. In this case, Marilyn Gladu with a more social conservative past, raising some concerns amongst, more progressive Liberals, I guess is the way to put it. How would you compare the party under this Prime Minister versus the previous Prime Minister?
Look, Michael, I'm not going to get into comparisons. The current Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, is really the man for the times right now. He was certainly a breath of fresh air in a party that had a lot of challenges. I certainly lived through it and have some difficult memories. But he has some core values that I respect. I undertook to run for Mark Carney, regardless of whether I would get back into cabinet or not. And so I support him. He is an incredibly bright individual, but also an incredibly human individual that cares deeply about Canada and cares deeply about the future of Canada. So that's a guy I can get behind, and that's probably the same thing for someone who doesn't perhaps share the same views as I do on some matters, like Marilyn Gladu. That said, these decisions are immensely personal, and I don't know the personal situation that Ms. Gladu went through, but I've certainly had a few conversations with her in the past, and she's always been very pleasant to me, even though we've had some heated discussions on some issues that we disagree on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You say you support the core values of Mark Carney. How do you define those core values? Because I think there are Canadians that wonder what it is at this point.
Well, he's first and foremost someone who is incredibly decent. Everyone knows his CV. Used to relitigate it. It is a brilliant one with a brilliant career. But my discussions with him have always been around how he sees the future of Canada, a Canada that cares about each other, that wants to fight to make things affordable for people, and that is laser focused in this case with the threats that we're facing around the world, but from our southern neighbor, where the friendship's being questioned, the economy. So I really think that he is a serious leader. Canadians, regardless of their historic political stripes, are seeing serious leadership, and they're rallying behind him. Let's not think that Ms. Gladu, whatever her views have been in the past, is an exception. It is an increasing number of people that say, hey, this is a serious guy.
Overnight, just like that. Like no problem, we don't care, forget about your entire rest of your life. It's okay now.
Serious Prime Minister with a serious government. Let's get behind these guys.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the threats to Canada coming from the South, and we certainly heard those types of threats from Donald Trump, talking about annexing this country, questioning the sovereignty of Canada, referring to the Prime Minister, now using a term he used with Prime Minister Trudeau, calling Mark Carney at times Governor Carney. I wonder, as we see these kind of threats against Canadian sovereignty coming from our closest neighbor, how do you, as Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, how does your portfolio help buttress the preservation of Canadian sovereignty against such a force south of our border?
Well, the simple answer, and additionally in my role as the Minister for Official Languages, also responsible for Indigenous languages, it's about our stories and how we tell them, and how the government of Canada supports artists that are the heartbeat of our country. And that is an important role. We just saw some hits that we supported that have radiated and resonated around the world. And that's super cool. And I get to play a small part in that, and being able to finance in various ways productions in Canada that reflect our culture, our identity, and our stories told by some amazing artists. I just spent a few days at the Junos where, we heard these amazing artists, including the celebration of Joni Mitchell, who's a Canadian icon, and how they are really reflecting who we are and where we think we're going without the government telling people what to do. We're supporting that, and that's something I think we can all be super proud of and get behind.
Mm-hmm. Get behind, and of course we're increasingly living in a digital age. Streaming services are flooding airwaves here in Canada, or streaming services in Canada in ways that they've never done before. How well prepared do you think Canada is to meet that challenge, to make sure that the Canadian identity, the Canadian voice remains vibrant and seen globally, and not to mention people here at home to support our feelings of Canadian nationalism?
Well, we do that in in a unique way, not the only country to do it, but we protect our Canadian content. We give credits for companies that want to produce Canadian content, and we support financially production companies that want to talk about Canada and have, there's a point system that is administered in a way that I'm not going to get into in CPAC at the risk of driving down your ratings. But it is something that we make sure that production companies, if they want the support and taxpayer support, have to say, hey, this is what we're doing about Canada, without telling them what to do, but reflecting who we are as a country. And that has been extremely successful. There's always places where we can tweak that, but that is increasingly important in a country that is awash with American content. Let's not be naive about where we are geographically as a country and what the consumer habits of Canadians are. But we have to keep doing that in a way that is fiscally responsible, but also reflecting, again, the stories that we are as a country and the heartbeat that artists bring to who I am and who you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have a massive ministry. So Liz, I appreciate the time. You and I will speak again. But for today, Mark.
Keep going. See what else.
Montreal, we're now...
This Steve McKinnon is... Well, you let me know in the comments.
Joined by Steve McKinnon, the government House leader.
This guy is ridiculous.
As well as Minister for Transport. Steve, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's so great to be here, and thank you to CPAC and the whole team for always covering these conventions. It's a very important part of what you do.
Thank you. It's our bread and butter, just saying. Listen, I want to begin with Marilyn Gladu. Of course, her addition to the Liberal caucus dominated the headlines even before Liberals gathered here in Montreal. And when you walk through this convention, without a doubt, there are those that are very enthused that her addition to your caucus means that this government is one step closer to forming a majority. But there are other voices here in Montreal expressing concern, primarily from progressive Liberals, who are worried about the addition of someone who's expressed more social conservative views in the past. Does that make your job and the job of senior Liberals a bit harder to ensure caucus unity now?
Well, first of all, we want to welcome Marilyn Gladu to our group. She is an incredible addition. I think MPs who have worked with her know her as a person who has worked across the aisle. You will know how hard it is to pass one private member's bill. She's passed two as an opposition member. So that's some testimony to her ability to get things done. So we're very, very happy to have her. That said, the Liberal Party is a party built on the foundations of equality, of human rights. It has values, women's right to choose. These are things that are immovable. And when one chooses to join the Liberal Party of Canada and our parliamentary caucus, one, by that same token, automatically adheres to those values. And I know Marilyn has and will continue to uphold them. And
to be fair, Marilyn Gladu in her news conference that happened here in Montreal says that she will be voting with the government when it comes to issues like that. But I think when you listen to the Liberals here in Montreal that are expressing concern, they're just concerned that the values they believe this party to uphold is no longer front and center, that it seems to be taking a backseat in this government's quest to form a majority. What would you say to that?
I would say that one needs only walk around these policy workshops where exciting ideas on climate change, on social change, on justice issues. We just heard an incredible presentation on artificial intelligence. This is a party that remains grounded in these important themes, but must also evolve. And part of the magic, the secret of the Liberal Party of Canada over the decades and the centuries has been its ability to pivot, to mirror the moment, to present policies to Canadians that are relevant and that meet the challenges of the times. We are in a very challenging period right now. We have world events happening. We have what the Prime Minister has described as a rupture. And Canada must adjust rapidly. And Canadians, we should feel grateful. Look to the Liberal Party at those moments to provide the solutions. And that's what you're experiencing a bit of right. It's a lot. We understand it's a lot for Liberals. And as we gather here in Montreal, sort of 5,000 strong, I think one can be very, very optimistic about the country when you see that every region is represented, every
progressive thought,
certainly progressive thought, but every possible cultural and other group. You see people passionate about healthcare. You see people passionate about the environment, and people passionate about the economy. These are all liberal values, and we're going to be continuing to put them on display for people.
Okay, put them on display, as you say, and you arguably have a greater chance to do that come the by-elections on Monday. And at this point, if all holds true, at least 2 of those 3 by-elections will be won by your party. That will put your government from a minority government to a majority government. How does that change what you're able to accomplish as a Liberal government if you do secure that majority come Monday?
Well, Canadians in the last election elected a parliament that was very close to a majority parliament. A few seats on one side or a few seats on the other. I don't think, Michael, changes our modus operandi, which is that we do need to, particularly in this moment.
It's not just to go. Like Steve McKinnon is gross. It's a lot.
Reach a hand across the aisle, hope to find support elsewhere, beyond the Liberal Party, beyond the Liberal Caucus, for our policies. I don't think anything about Monday, whatever the result, and we never take the voters for granted, I don't think that will modify our basic approach, which is to extend the hand of cooperation to other parties, to the New Democrats, to the Bloc Québécois, to the Conservatives. We negotiate on details. We don't negotiate on principles, but we've found some success, as you've seen.
Import the new voters.
In recent weeks, to get support and attract support. The Budget Implementation Act, a major piece of legislation. The essential parts, not all of them, but many of them, of our crime agenda, our tough on crime agenda. All of these things have found some success in recent weeks. So we're hoping that that streak continues.
Okay, hoping that streak continues. But will it change the speed at which we're seeing things done? You know, when Mark Carney was campaigning in the last election, you know, this time last year, he was speaking about accomplishing things for this country at speeds not seen before.
Well, but
will securing majority actually make that a reality?
Well, you know, that's a hypothetical question. We'll see how opposition parties make adjustments. We'll see how we make adjustments. Again, with the basic premise that we do want to be a government of unity, a government that finds support and attracts support for its policies from all sides of the House. We do want to get rid of obstruction. Canadians look at this obstruction. Canadians living in conservative ridings look at this, you know, obstruction, this parliamentary strategy where, you know, a day the government gets nothing done is a good day for Canada. Well, no one believes that out there. And too often that has been Mr. Poilievre's approach. That is an approach that does not always get approval in his own caucus. And to the extent that we would be able to get beyond some of those petty tricks, then we'll try and do that. But we do want to make sure that we continue dialoguing with all parts of the country and people of all political stripes.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left, but before we're done, I also want to, you know, ask you to put on your Minister of Transport hat now.
Yeah.
Because Alto has been making news, and we are now seeing a number of farmers, landowners in Ontario, Eastern Ontario in particular.
There's going to be a couple of good questions here. Alto is a scam.
Expressing fears about losing their livelihoods and their homes because of this project. Do those concerns give you reason to hesitate about moving forward with Alto at all?
No, but we do need to do it with sensitivity. This is an historic project. It's a linear project. Unfortunately, that means that it needs to be go in an unbroken 60-meter wide line between Quebec City and Toronto. We will do that with as much sensitivity as possible, with as much common sense as possible. Follow utility corridors or any other public rights-of-way like highways. We will do that. Where it's not possible to do that, we will negotiate with sensitivity with landowners. But again, like people like to depict the 10-kilometer wide corridor that's been identified, within which a 60-meter wide alignment will be chosen later this year. They like to depict that 10-kilometer corridor as being all of the land we're going to take. That is not true. Again, these are kind of some of the simplistic opposition you see that comes from the other side of the House, particularly their leader. but not true. Canadians want high-speed rail. Canadians expect us to deliver on this kind of nation-building project, and we want to give our kids the ability to move within the country in a very, very modern, fast way. It would be absolutely transformational, and we're really looking forward to making progress on it.
Okay, but before the Prime Minister forwarded the high-speed rail as a major project, the concerns I was hearing was not about the lack of high-speed rail. The concerns I was hearing were about via rail. Why not just spend that money and make what is already owned and operating better instead of investing something that at this point is theoretical? Why not take the money and build a dedicated rail line for VIA to allow for faster and more frequent service rather than putting tens of billions into Alto?
Well, while it might be faster, it wouldn't be high speed. And VIA has a role, will continue to have a role, and we know that we need to continue to improve VIA's service. It does, unfortunately, share a track with, in many cases, cargo trains, and those cargo trains have priority because the companies that run them own the track. So we're going to continue to work on that. VIA has a new interim CEO. That CEO has marching orders from the government to improve customer service, to improve reliability. We want to do that. But if you're building new track, why would you build anything but the latest, best, world-beating technology? Which
I know I should break it up with something a little bit lighter than Karina the Gould. She's out here. She's gonna sing a classic. Karina the Gould.
Oh, we're now joined by Karina Gould, the Member of Parliament for Burlington in Ontario, Chair of the Standing Committee for Finance. Karina, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
So obviously a lot of conversation taking place here in Montreal about Marilyn Gladu, attending her first convention as a Liberal the day after she crosses the floor. I'm wondering what your experience has been like with Marilyn Gladu, because you would have encountered her in the House of Commons.
Look, I've known Marilyn Gladu since I was elected. We actually did our Member of Parliament orientation together. We were in the same group back in 2015. Marilyn is a very congenial person, and actually she's been one of the Conservatives that's been quite collaborative on a number of issues, particularly when it comes to supporting survivors of domestic violence and other areas. She's been on the Status of Women Committee for a long time. Marilyn and I hold very different views on a wide range of issues, but I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt in that she understands the party that she is joining. The values that underpin the Liberal Party are now the values that she is accepting.
She knows she's a sellout. So great. See how far you'll sell out. Like, you're one of us.
Right? And I think this, says more about what she is choosing to join as opposed to what is changing about the Liberal Party. Certainly the conversations that I've had with delegates at this convention, that's been the overwhelming feeling, is that if someone is choosing to join the Liberal Party, it's because they're choosing to accept the values, the policies, the priorities that we as members have spent so long working on and fighting for.
I wonder, though, if she might serve as almost a lightning rod for division within Caucus, because when you walk through these halls, there are those that are happy where the party is right now in terms of public support, so don't necessarily want to rock the boat greatly, but they're reserving judgment. They're clearly saying off camera that, well, we'll see where it goes, we'll see what she actually does and what this does for the party. What does senior leadership, you as being former government House leader, what does senior leadership of this government, what do they need to do to make sure she isn't divisive for the caucus?
Well, I think the Prime Minister has to continue to say what he's been saying, in that the conversation that he had with her is that she's going to be supporting government policy. That's what being a member of the governing party is about. That's what being a member of the Liberal Party is about. That, this party is a pro-choice party. That this is a party where a woman's right to choose is non-negotiable.
She looks vaccine injured. Like she looks like she's messed up.
You might hold different views, but when you're a member of this party, you don't act to change that, because that is something that the membership, the leadership, the caucus has committed to. When I ran in 2015, I had to commit to, promising to uphold the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That's not a hard thing for me to do. I deeply believe that, and I will fight every day for people's rights and freedoms in this country. But that's something that I think we need to continue to see. And so, I'm going to hold the Prime Minister accountable for what he has said about, accepting somebody who has held beliefs that are contrary to the beliefs of the Liberal Party and its membership, and I think we're going to have to see how that goes. But as I said, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She has said publicly that she will support these values, and she will support, more than the values, the rights of Canadians and the rights that the women's movement, the LGBTQ movement has fought so long for in this country, and that we hold dear and are precious. And I know that we have to work every single day to maintain those and to fight for them and to keep ensuring that people have access to those rights. And so I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She said she's going to do it. And so now we just have to see that happen.
Okay.
How many times did she say benefit of the doubt? Like, it must have been at least a dozen. Like, it was a lot.
Listen, while you're here, I also want to talk about the by-elections that are going to happen come Monday. If things go as expected, the 2 by-elections in Toronto will go Liberal. Terrebonne is the closer race, so we don't know where that's going to go. But how necessary is a majority for this government, do you think? To get its agenda passed, how necessary is a majority?
Well, look, I never want to count our chickens until they hatch, right? And so we always have to see what happens on election day. I think, as you said, we have a good feeling about certainly the 2 Toronto by-elections, but we need to see what that actually results in on Monday. Look, we have been a pretty effective parliament, particularly since this year. And when I say this year, I mean like 2026. If you had asked me last fall, I would have said that was one of the most dysfunctional parliaments I've ever been a part of. And so therefore, a majority government felt like it was really necessary and important in order to get the government's agenda through. But the government's been working really well with the opposition since the beginning.
She's never been a part of anything other than a minority government. Like, she's talking like she was around in the majority days. Creator of the Gold gets worse.
Well, we're now joined by the Deputy Government House Leader, Member of Parliament for London West, Ariel Kaibaga. Ariel, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Je vais commencer avec évidemment la nouvelle, je pense, qui a vraiment
spent $137,000 on just fun in 1 week.
Je pense qu'on peut dire quand même dominer une grande partie du Congrès. C'est l'arrivée au sein du Caucus libéral de Marilyn Gladu, une députée qui.
All right, we're getting into that, guys. We're crossing over to something different because it's boring. I'm being slow because my computer's being I'm being boring because my computer's being slow. Here we go. 2 more seconds.
A geologist, I'm very passionate about this.
You believe in it?
Climate change is a fact. I've been talking about it since I've been talking about it since 1979. It's also a fact that humans are not causing it. Humans are not causing it, and the real scientists know
cow
this.
farts.
It's not the cows. I'll tell you. I mean, NASA knows this. NASA knows that over 90% of the CO2. There is an increase in CO2. Okay, it's just I made a statement, and I just want to justify this. Is there more CO2 in the atmosphere now than there was 10 years, 20, 50, 100 years ago? The answer is absolutely yes. Is it a bad thing? The answer is no. Is it the most we've ever had? We're right about 440 parts per million right now. In geologic history, we're looking Cretaceous over 1,000, or the Jurassic over 1,000 parts per million, Triassic 2,000 parts per million. The Earth was lush, the Earth was green, life was abundant during that time. And what we see in geologic history, and this is fascinating to me, there are times when CO2 levels are high and the temperatures are low. and times when just the opposite is happening, it's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation. Where's the CO2 coming from? NASA knows. I've got a bunch of videos on this. Over 90% of the CO2 is coming from the oceans. Warming. Warm water holds less gas. Here's the kicker. The oceans are warming from underneath, not from the top. If it was from the CO2 on the top, the warming of the air, it would be coming from the top. It's warming. The glaciers are melting from underneath. The CO2 is coming. The oceans are warming from underneath from tectonic processes that happen about every 12,500 years that people just don't want to talk about. It is a tectonic process that begins in the core, translates perturbations into the mantle, into the crust, the weak areas of the crust. You see more tectonic activity, more volcanic activity, was exactly what we're seeing.
Liberalism is all about control. Control what you can say, what you read, what you drive, what you eat, what you drink, your guns, your news, what you learn, your health care, your education, every aspect of your life.
At North Atlantic, it is cold. They say it's 10 degrees, but it feels, I don't know how you can get frostbite when it's 10 degrees, but I feel like I'm on the path. You can see back there, that's where the police told us to leave our vehicle, and we sort of made our way through the town, and you can see these big trucks with their dump trucks extended. This is part of the protest. And like I say, this oil refinery is a key piece of strategic infrastructure. When we arrived, we met, I think there was probably about 30 men there who were with the protests. They were wearing their high-vis uniforms. In fact, at first I thought they might have been police themselves. I had a few conversations, and I was delighted to know that a number of them were familiar with Rebel News. We've been to Ireland. I think this is our 9th visit over the last few years when we added it all up. There's a lot of interesting things in Ireland. And I think the most interesting thing is that they have that Irish spirit of rebellion, that they're not going to take it. And the issue that motivates the people today is the fuel tax, but one gentleman brought up mass immigration as well. There's other issues in this country. I find it fascinating to watch the Irish take the initiative rather than be passive, as happens in some other countries. The one mystery for me, though, is how you can have such a people with a grassroots energy and organic demand and authentic demand for reform, but no political party willing to seize it. Where's the political entrepreneur? In the United Kingdom, there's Nigel Farage. In France, there's the Le Pen family. In Ireland, you could say Giorgia Meloni is of that breed. There's Viktor Orban in Hungary. Where is the Irish answer? And you don't have to be radical. You just have to say, we're cutting taxes, we're defunding the NGOs, we're bringing an end to the mass immigration madness, and you can say so in a sweet and reasonable way. I would think such a party would instantly be a contender. Alas, it doesn't seem to be here, but we're here as reporters, not advisors. Let's keep walking.
I think when you talk about somebody like Marilyn Gladu, what you have is somebody who wants to build and it doesn't want to play those games, doesn't want to have those opposition tactics that you can tell are clearly fatiguing the other side. We got in the Prime Minister somebody who's very interested in building, and that is going to draw a lot of Canadians in, whether they be people who traditionally supported the NDP or whether people who traditionally supported the Conservatives. And I think when you think about these floor crossers, they're just reflecting the Canadian electorate right now. I mean, we all see the polls, we all know what the current state of things is.
Canadian time you get, little man.
Says people should vote with their hearts because the Prime Minister doesn't need Terrebonne for majority. Well, if people vote with their hearts, they should vote Liberal because we have the largest Liberal team representing Quebec. It's the Liberal team that represents Quebec with the most members. So if people are voting with their hearts, they should also be able to vote with their heads because both align at the moment. Look at the number of Quebecers with important roles in cabinet.
riding are you from?
Milton East, Halton Hills South.
Milton East, and you're a Liberal MP?
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Sure. What's your name?
My name is Max.
Nice.
I'm just wondering, why so many young Canadians like myself, I can't afford a home. And I'm wondering, what is the Liberal Party doing in order to help that?
Well, I actually have my daughter with me. She's in her mid-20s and she just got married last year and they're hoping to save up for a home as well. I actually have 4 young adult children at home who are trying to save up. So I understand the challenge. I'm living it firsthand. I think it's a supply and demand issue, partially. So what we have to do is catalyze home building in our country, because when the supply increases, the prices go down, right? Now, this is a big issue and it requires a lot of policy contemplation and implementation, and specifically working very closely with our municipalities. I was a municipal councillor before. Housing was a big issue that we had to deal with because municipalities are the ones that are issuing the building permits and doing all the long-term planning for development. So there's a conversation there between all levels of government, including the provincial government, which mandate housing numbers as well. And we have to make sure that municipalities have the financial support they need to build the infrastructure that supports housing, like transit and services like water, wastewater, and utilities.
What about drastically reducing immigration? Because it seems like that ratio, housing and people, it's not right, and it's inflating the price of housing.
Yeah, well, you've heard the Prime Minister say on record that I was actually at a press conference during the campaign where he was asked this very question by a reporter, and his words were, look, too many people came too fast. There's no point welcoming people if we cannot support them with what they need as far as housing and jobs. So you've seen the immigration numbers drastically reduced. Again, it's a type of policy that takes some time to implement because you do have applications in the pipeline that are backlogged and need to be dealt with. But I think it's been pretty clear that we recognize that those numbers have to be revised and maintained in order for us to get back into a financially, fiscally responsible position.
How many people would the Liberal government remove? And would it be student visas or temporary foreign workers? Because people need to go, in order for me to afford a house.
I don't know much about actually physically removing people. That'd probably be a better question for the immigration minister. So that would be something I would defer to her. But what I can say is what you've seen publicly said is that immigration is something that we're quite alive to, that has to be responsibly managed in order for this to be a country for everybody to have a prosperous future in, immigrants and people who are here.
Do you think that Canadians should get a priority over immigrants?
My husband's waiting, sorry.
Okay. How would you define a Canadian?
My father was an immigrant, by the way. So I'm...
Okay, but could you define what a Canadian is? No? Okay.
Thea, you're in Montreal, but knowing you've been talking to people over the past 24 hours. We're also hearing that there could be more people crossing the floor. What do you make of how Mr. Poilievre responded to this, and whether you get the sense that he can stay?
Well, he responded very forcefully. He wants to fight. It feels like the Conservative caucus is kind of butter knives out. There's nobody actually that wants to stab him forcefully. Yes. So they're all spreading discontent, but they're not really going out and doing the deed, right? I mean, you think back to how Pierre Poilievre acted and, his emissaries around the Erin O'Toole defenestration, and it's really not quite the same thing. No. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from Marilyn Gladu's floor crossing. Primarily is that you had an MP that you thought the Liberals would not take, so you did not respond to concerns that they were underused, that they were not going on the media and speaking out often, that they were not given portfolios to sink their teeth in. So he needs to realize that there are people who have capabilities who want to do more than they are being given. He also has a senior leadership management problem. There is a lot of dissatisfied Conservatives over the team around Pierre Poilievre. He has not addressed that. So he really should be looking inwards and trying to fix problems rather than just going out and saying that he has a mandate from Conservatives with 87%. It would be much easier to believe his argument and give it credence when he says the Prime Minister is involved in backroom deals or dirty deals. I mean, the Prime Minister is involved in backroom deals, but he also, tried to fix his leadership vote as best as he could to get the highest percentage. It's not like every single member of the Conservative Party had a vote in January. And I think he needs to recognize that. The other thing is when he starts talking about what distinguishes the Liberal Party from the Conservative Party, he's using words like affordability, safety, national security. These are things Mark Carney is addressing. So he needs a message that goes beyond what the Liberal Prime Minister has basically stolen from the Conservative platform and made his own. Because the marker of differentiation seems to be that Pierre Poilievre is willing to be more extreme, far more right-wing, and I'm not sure that that's where
about to pop off again because Canada is now thinking of fining people $500,000 if they want to leave Canada. What? That is a hostage situation and the ransom is $500,000. Just listen to this.
Canadians have subsidized my education to the tune of, you pick the number, $500,000, right? 500,000, and if it's a graduate student, go, right? 30,000 TN go to the U.S. every year. You want to save yourself $5 to $10 billion? Shut the TN program. And then keep them in, or make them pay their $500,000 so that if they leave. I'm okay with that.
Bruh. First of all, this loser doesn't even live in Canada and hasn't lived in Canada since he left Canada on a TN visa to the United States. He lives in Europe because Canada's a shithole. Isn't that so cute? Also, you don't get free education in Canada. No one subsidizes that. We have to pay for our own education out of our own money. The only thing you get in free in Canada is bent over, going dry by the government, and then you get made so that they can harvest your organs. That is a... Please, if you're a normal Canadian, listen to me. If you're one of those elbows up, I don't really care. You can stay in that shithole. If you're a normal Canadian, and if you can see where the country's going and headed down, please plan your exit strategy now before it is too late for you to leave. Even if...
Where are we all going to go, though?
Who it is, it's me and Sid Fitzgerald.
I think about leaving all the time. I don't want to be involved in what I'm afraid to say it. Like, it doesn't look good. The Conservatives aren't winning. Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, to a reasonable person, if they paid attention, they would, I don't know, if it'd be like 85-15, like it would be all for change. But people don't pay attention and they get duped by legacy media, state-funded media, whatever.
Start, and we're back at the ostrich farm. We were almost done. Sid was working on the editing for our documentary, Culling the Cure. And then the CBC put out its hit piece through the Fifth Estate. And Rebel has to do what Rebel does and bring you the other side of the story. Follow the facts where they lead, which is why we are going to be watching the Fifth Estate.
Huge fan of Rebel News. Like, I'm a subscriber. I paid for hanging out with those guys. I love them. They do a really good job. I don't know who else would do it as well as they do as an organization. Good job,
States documentary with the farmers, getting their initial reactions, my initial reactions, and most importantly, the truth. So stay tuned for that and our upcoming film at cullingthecure.com. Thank you for everybody who's been helping making it possible. If you want to continue to do so, we really appreciate that. We've been working for how many months now?
Too many
months, but it's going to be worth it because our farming industry deserves the truth. So cullingthecure.com, we appreciate your support.
But yeah, there's this channel on X. Maybe she's on YouTube as well. Lyndon Brooks. is great. It seems like a kind of in-your-face journalism, but what isn't in-your-face journalism now these days? Lynn Brooks.
Go on to Sam Cooper. He's got on Facebook. He's got it on X. The article about Dolly Begum's. I don't think he's a campaign manager, but he's the one that got Dolly and Mark Carney kind of. Yeah. Okay. Cheryl's saying his campaign manager. So here's the story. You guys read it, but it's bizarre. So this Ali Tektabar or whatever, you know how Muslim values are Canadian values. Well, he's molesting this young girl under 14, and at the Leering Center or something. It's just nuts. And so the girl goes and tells her parents, and the parents go up to the guy and say, hey, what's going on? You're molesting my daughter. And the guy admits to it right away. And then
anyhow, we're going to skip. Lynn Brooks, though, check out her channel. Maybe she has one. You can check that out on YouTube.
Who put this message together for you and hit send? You're citing CNN, but you're also dissing CNN for having produced certain polls. I don't know. You just told us that we couldn't get on CNN, but now you're saying that we have good coverage on CNN. You're all over the place. It seems like you can't put together a coherent thought. Let me tell you something, and this is just reality, okay? Going back to just the rules of the jungle, okay? Let all the politicians and advisors around you evaporate for just a moment. Just you and me, ready? People will not fight beside, behind, or for someone who is fundamentally disloyal, okay? If disloyalty and deceit is in your nature, then I highly suggest that you combine it with silence. You can be what you are, but I would advise you do it quietly, Trump. Because MAGA is no longer commanded by you, and you know it. You know it. You belong to the Epstein class. That is your legacy now. People will see your name on buildings, whatever was agreed upon in those boardrooms, Jared Kushner, Trump, Gaza, hotel, whatever you tweeted, so crass. They will see that. You will earn that. And then when they see it, they will think about how many children had to die or be raped by men on islands so that you could stick the Trump name upon a building.
These are your political choices. This is the Canadian men's soccer team, and this is the number of immigrants that have came into the country in the past decade. So what is the solution? Is it voting Conservative? Well, this is the state of the Conservative Party. So what difference does it really fucking make when the Liberals won 380,000 immigrants and the Conservatives won 250,000? It's like our people are being fucking raped, and the only two options you have is if you want it slower or faster. Welcome to Canada, where the
refused to take my question. You don't even know what my question was.
Yeah, I think we got.
Was that a direction from Mr. Polyev, or was that your own?
There was no direction.
No, there's clearly a direction. You refused to let me ask a question.
So thank you for coming.
Because I work for this.
I don't know if this journalist, but she flips out. She's supposed to be a CBC hack that flips out because she didn't get her question. Might have been because she was wearing that stupid jacket.
Why is that?
Has nothing to do with anything.
Then why didn't you let me ask my question? I was first in line. I kept telling you I'd like to ask a question, and you intentionally went around
banner
to
could
me.
be a little bit better. I would say that. That might have helped. That might
Maybe you
have hurt
can
you a
tell
little
me
bit.
why you would not let me ask a question. Is that? Are you picking and choosing which outlets are allowed to ask questions?
I'm the one and I can only take a certain amount of questions.
You told us to line up, sir. I lined up. I followed your rules, and then I asked you if I could ask a
Everybody else
question.
wasn't shouting into an open mic.
I wasn't shouting into an open mic. Was I shouting into an open mic? You were standing right beside me. Thank you. I was polite and I was respectful, and I had a very respectful question. And I don't understand. I am shocked. Nobody is respectful. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm so frustrated. This has never happened.
Never happened to me.
But I didn't want to talk to you. I wanted to ask the leader of the Conservative Party a question.
It didn't happen today. Thank you for coming. You tried.
Ice cream
it's very good for you.
It's not.
It is.
It's not.
Look, they did a study. They did a study in 2014, and the thing that prevented type 2 diabetes the most, ice cream. Plus, it makes you happy.
Okay. I haven't had ice cream in 30 years. I can be happy without ice cream.
You can,
yes.
but most of us love ice cream,
okay,
and we should indulge.
Okay, well, but that's, it's a, no, that's a bullshit argument. Yeah, you know, yes, I mean,
ice cream is very good.
I would love for that piece to be true. I don't know if I trust that or no.
Dollars to deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIW, G2S, LGBTQIA+.
And for those of you fascists who don't know what that means, it's obviously missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, intersex, and asexual. And we decided that the best way to honor these murdered and missing women was to lump them into the ever-growing category of gender identities and sexualities.
Do better than guys. Women can do things. Here's one example that I was at the mall with my nephew babysitting. I'm just walking through the mall, and a woman I didn't know pulled up a knee. She goes, "Is that your son?" I go, "No, it's my nephew." And she without any hesitation, she says, "He is adorable. What's your name?" "You are so cute. Marcus, when you turn 18, I'm coming back for you. You're a little heartbreaker. Save him for me. He's so cute." And she walked away. Went back to shopping. I challenge any man in this room.
Look at this.
Have you been in contact with any constituents that feel that you misrepresented them?
Did you try to talk with your constituent after you decided to cross the floor?
Have you personally spoken with anyone?
Harassing me. Thank you.
Have you
I'm not
personally
harassing. You are an MP. You are elected. You need to be held accountable of your act. You crossed the floor. You represented a lot of constituents.
It's a fat pig.
Maxing, the extreme online beauty trend is gaining popularity, particularly among young men and teens. Here's a little breakdown of what it is.
On the surface, it's about trying to look your best in order to attract a partner. For looks maxers, there are very specific ideals. There's a correct angle to the jaw, size of the forehead, ear positioning, eye tilt, ratio of upper lip to chin, and the list goes on. Boys and young men post their photos online, asking for feedback and ratings on their appearance. But the criticism they get back is often,
I know I don't look great. Like I try to stay kind of a good distance from the camera, but why these poor kids do shit like this to themselves? Come on.
Extreme.
The looks maxing community often markets unregulated injectable peptide drugs as a way to help with weight loss and bodybuilding. Now Health Canada is warning people to avoid using those injectables as they can come with serious side effects. We reached out to Dr. Christopher Labos to take a look at this. Chris, good morning to you.
Good
morning.
I always have a ton of respect for the work you do. Even though I don't...
Gasparo is a grease ball. Like he's gonna seem kind of likable in this, which makes him extra greasy. Watch.
You probably agree with 60% of the words that come out of your mouth. I have a ton of respect for the amount of effort that you put into it. And I'm being incredibly genuine. I'm being serious. I have a ton of respect for you.
Check this out.
I always have a ton of respect for the work you do. Even though I don't probably agree with 60% of the words that come out of your mouth, I have a ton of respect for the amount of effort that you put into it. And I'm being incredibly genuine. I'm being serious. I have a ton of respect for you. I always have a ton of respect for the work you do. Even though I don't probably agree with 60% of the words that come out of your mouth, I have a ton of respect for the amount of effort that you put in.
Sorry, gang.
Senior organizer, is that right?
Yeah, James Gagan from Westmeath, agricultural contractor.
How far away is that from Dublin?
About 100 kilometres.
And are you a farmer yourself?
Farmer and agri-contractor, yeah.
What kind of stuff do you farm?
Beef and then machinery hire. Plant hire, diggers and tractors like these.
Do you have a vehicle in the protest here?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
And when did you arrive?
I was here first morning. I was the organizer. I actually had to come and meet the police and set it up.
Well, tell me a bit about that, because we're from Canada and we had a big trucker convoy.
Yeah.
And some members of the police wanted to work with the truckers to keep it calm and smooth and keep a lane open for ambulances.
We did the same here. Yeah. Yeah, we kept a lane open on all the motorways for ambulances, 100%.
And do you talk to the police on a regular basis?
Every day. Yeah, keep in contact with them and all the groups. We have about 40 protests going all over Ireland, and everyone is liaison with the guards and working perfect. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? I saw the deputy commissioner of the Gardaí. She's a Canadian woman, which really surprised me. And her language, she said, we're moving to enforcement. I'm sure you saw that video. That really rubbed me the wrong way. I was embarrassed.
It rubbed us as well the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, first of all,
I was asked last night about what's my opinion of the army coming in, as they were saying about enforcement. And my reply back to them was, and this was on national television last night on RTÉ prime time, my answer back was, we have a bigger army.
I saw that clip of you.
My answer to the army coming in the streets is, we have actually a bigger army. So we're not afraid of the army. We're agri-contractors, plant hire men. The army will not move this protest, and if any vehicle is touched on that protest, there'll be 10 more to replace it immediately. Yeah. So we're not afraid of the army. We have far more power than they have.
Well, and I bet a lot of members of the army, and I bet a lot of police support you.
Yeah, the army not turning up for work.
How is the mainstream media in Ireland treating the protest?
Trying to discredit it at the start. Trying to put fake news about it, trying to exaggerate fake news, pick out the bad points, but everybody can see through their fake bullshit.
Now, the police seem to be pretty calm about things.
Yeah, we have two police here. There's a man from Canada. He's wondering about how are the police on it? How are you feeling about the protest? There's no hassle. Peaceful protest. Here you are, Francis.
How about the military? I saw some armored personnel carriers, and I saw some.
Don't mind where they were going. We've more armor than they have.
How is this going to end? Because the politicians, they don't like to blink.
No, but they have no choice.
What do you think is going to happen?
We have a list of man's gone in. They will be met this evening when we go home. When they meet them. If they don't meet them, we don't go home.
Are you expecting to meet them today?
I have to today.
Can I ask who you're meeting with at half two?
In government buildings with government ministers.
Before you go, and did you hear about the Canadian trucker convoy a few years ago? Is that in any way an inspiration or a warning?
It would be, yeah.
Now in Canada, they brought in martial law to end it. They seized bank accounts. Is that going to happen in Ireland?
It wouldn't happen here.
I wish you good luck.
Good luck. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Right.
There he is. Very interesting. I didn't realize that was the big boss. He really is meeting with the government to talk terms. He was on TV in Ireland last.
All right, gang. So we're going to wrap it up right there. My name's Aaron. This is Aaron, Canadian Looney. We're trying some new things around here. Trying to keep it interesting. Smash the like, hit subscribe. All those fun things. Trying to learn about Canadian federal politics. We might be game over on Monday. Like after those elections, who knows? Like they have a big majority. Might not be good. We'll wait and see. That's it. Wrapping it up for now. We'll go out on this.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Bing bong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.